Last week I had a lot of travel and work going on. I was at an AEW show on Wednesday, then I had to go directly to Pittsburgh for a wrestling booking of my own. And as I was traveling, I was getting some notifications on social media. There were some people contacting me about Pokémon Sword and Shield and the new thing it's done to upset a bunch of people. So now I'm back, going back to regular work. I've dug through what people are upset about. There's a new Pokemon expansion pass that many people are considering a paywall of content. But having actually dug into it, I'm not quite sure I see the issue. And let me clarify that. I don't see the issue as compared to the existing Pokemon model, which itself is fucking garbage. In fact, I've seen it argued that what Pokemon Sword and Shield is doing is actually better than previous Pokemon generations when it comes to post-launch content. And considering this expansion isn't the Pokemon Company selling the exact fucking game again with a few additions, it is hard not to make the case that this expansion is better than Pokemon Ultra Sun and Pokemon Ultra Moon, expanded versions of a game at full price that was released a year after the original. Since the very first generation of Pokemon, this idea of an expanded re-release has become pretty normal in the Pokemon franchise, even though it's always been bollocks. Pokemon Yellow was a follow-up to Pokemon Red and Blue way back in the late 90s. It was basically the exact same game with some added stuff, and ever since then it's become a series tradition. You release the first wave of a new generation, basically 2 versions of the exact same game with exclusive Pokemon in each one, and then a little bit later, you release a whole new game that's exactly the same as the ones you just released, but with some added features. What the expansion slated for June does is modernize this approach. It's no longer a case of re-releasing the exact same game with added content. Now, like a modern video game, you buy the added content and it bolts right onto the game you've already bought. Pundits have pointed out that the expansion costs $30, whereas an entirely new game, you know, an Ultra Sword or an Ultra Shield, would probably charge full price. But Pokemon Sword and Shield has been contentious among some of the fans of the series. The fact that hundreds of Pokemon were cut out, the controversy they called Dexit, really ruffled some feathers, and there are quite a few people out there not inclined to forgive the Pokemon series for anything at the moment. So anyway, $30 will get 2 DLC packs, the Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra, which will be 2 new areas. There will be new Pokemon to find, there will be like over 100 different clothing items for your character, and just in general more content to interact with. Now the real point of contention has been the fact that 200 of those Pokemon cut during Dexit will be returning with the expansion. Now some people have seen the re-adding of 200 older Pokemon as a paywalling of content that should have been in the game to begin with. However, while you can pay for the expansion and get the ability to catch these 200 Pokemon, whether you have the expansion or not, you can still trade in those Pokemon from elsewhere. You only need the expansion pass if you want to personally catch them. Trading, transferring, using the upcoming Pokemon Home, that can all be used to access these Pokemon in Sword and Shield. Nonetheless, some people are mad, and that is their right, but as I was looking into this, I was thinking to myself, why be mad now? Or rather, if you are angry about this in any way, you should really be angry at the Pokemon series as a whole, because its business model has always been shit. If a game tried to pull now what Pokemon pulled in '98, that is, selling 2 versions of the exact same game, with content carved out and separated by each version, there would be hell to pay. The only reason it's become acceptable in Pokemon is because they did it when we were all kids, so we've grown up with it being normalized. If Electronic Arts or Activision had tried to pull the exact same stunt with one of their modern games, if there was, for example, a Call of Duty Sword and a Call of Duty Shield, they'd never hear the end of it. And rightly so. But Pokemon does it, and at this point it's just Pokemon being Pokemon. And the same goes for the expanded re-releases we talked about earlier, just selling the same game. That's what this whole series has traded on. selling the same shit over and over. I know I'm not pointing out anything particularly mind-blowing, it's not exactly innovative to point at Pokemon's business model and say, that's fucking cheeky, but nonetheless, they've gotten away with it and it's become so routine and normalized that it doesn't spark half the outrage it otherwise would have if they just started doing it. Now, if the controversial nature of Sword and Shield and the whole Dexit kerfuffle is causing a number of fans to re-examine their relationship with the series, and that does seem to be the case, some of the miffed fans do indeed view Pokemon in a new light now, well, the time is ripe to take a look at the series as a whole, because it's been running a successful scam for decades. There never actually needed to be a Pokemon Red and a Pokemon Blue. Over the years, it's been suggested it's all about building friendship, how your friend can have a version and you can have a version and you can trade, and oh, how fun, it's a con. Every Pokemon generation is a double dip. Until they do the expanded re-releases, then it's a triple dip. I'm not saying don't be mad at the expansion pass for Sword and Shield. If you want to do that, fill your boots. But for the people contacting me about this and calling it a Poke-Con, let's be honest here, the entire series is a Poke-Con. Pokemon's business model has always been trash. There is no satisfactory excuse for what it does. It's a grift that's only been allowed to continue due to, well, a grandfather clause. Anyway, am I getting my fucking Ekans or not?